enjoy the journey and be open to going off track. And even if people think, "Oh, what is she doing? Or what's he doing? Or what are they doing? What are they thinking?" Like, it's your journey, and you're the
Mm.
only one who really knows what's next.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Going there. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
We're back here, Mandi and Amani, again for another episode, live episode with us. How are we doing today, Mandi?
Amani, you're not going to believe it. I got a real life update. We have picked a new general contractor, a new designer. We're signing a contract today. We are moving on Saturday. This renovation is finally going to happen. And at the end of the day, we were only delayed like 3 weeks. After all of that,
Okay.
we were only delayed 3 weeks. So I know everybody's been following along this renovation mess of a journey it's been, and it's happening. And we really like these guys, and we feel really good about it. And yeah, so that's my big news. That's my big news for today, Amani.
All right, that's good news. That's good news. We like it. We like it.
Yeah. What about you? What happened in your world this weekend?
Okay, this weekend, so I had a DJ event last night. Um, I don't know what I'm trying to think. I can't even remember. Nothing too crazy, I would say. Nothing too crazy big or whatever. Because I'm planning for the trip. I'm going to St. Louis this week for MPI. So yeah. Yes. So
I
up
want to
but
hear prep really quick. Am I unmuted? Am I
no,
unmuted
now
now?
you're unmuted. Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I know you're doing digital shows at MPI. You have a speaking session. Can you just really quick before we get to our guest, because I know how much work you put into it, and anybody that's attending MPI that should come see you, like tell us what you're doing at MPI this week, because this is a lot.
Yeah, so I'm doing the digital experience host. So I'm interviewing like 24, 25 people. This is where I met our guest last year. I met her there. And so I'm interviewing about 25 people there. And then I'm also presenting with Taylor Smith on kind of like the soundtrack to Cross Generations. So that's what I'm doing. And when I arrive in St. Louis, the first night I have a book event at a local bookstore. So that's what I'm doing. Now, remember,
Awesome.
Mandi, you're still muted. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. I think it's going to be great. Anybody going to MPI WC, track down Amani. Go visit with them.
Yes. Now, that's a good segue because last year I had the pleasure of interviewing Princess Sarah Culberson. We had a delightful time for like 20 minutes. Our interview went long. We had so much fun interviewing. She's got some great things to share with us. I have some follow-up questions now that we're a year later. And so I don't want to spoil anything. So let's bring her right to the. So first, we're going to bring her right to the audience. So there she is. Round of applause for Princess Sarah Culberson.
Hi.
Hi,
Yes.
Princess Sarah.
Hello.
Thank you for being here in that hat. If you're just listening and you're not watching, you might consider heading over to the YouTube or watching on Spotify later on and seeing this hat that Princess Sarah has. It's amazing.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so much. I was actually just in Nashville. So I
Oh,
got this cowboy hat in Nashville and I'm just loving it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to wear it.
okay. How
It
did
looks
you was it
great.
are you do you go to Nashville frequently, or is that a regular trip, or is this a new trip for you?
No, it was I feel like I go to Nashville a lot as a speaker. So because there's so many convention centers there. So I was speaking in Nashville to an organization, a company, and so I got a hat and got to hang out and got to hear all this incredible music. It's just kind of magical. It's really magical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed. Now, before we get started, one of my favorite stories that Princess Sarah and I talked about is that
Yes.
it's a little known fact that she was a star basketball
Ah!
player in West Virginia in high school.
Oh
And so I would like for you to share this time. Talk to us about the game when you went for like 38 points and you hit a lot of three pointers. Like, tell us about that game because I love that story.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even remember talking about that. That's so funny. That doesn't come up in interviews very often, if at all. But yes, I played basketball. Basketball was part of my identity growing up, actually. I played sports, I ran track, I was a sprinter, 100, 200-meter dash. I played basketball. I was a 2 shooting guard. I'm not very tall. So, um and it was so much fun. And I remember the best game was, I don't know if people know AAU basketball. It
Yeah.
was like the
Mhm.
Yeah.
summer basketball league. So I played in the summer basketball league, and this was our last game of the season. Like we had to win this or we were out. And the people, sorry, my puppy clearly is whining in the back and wants to go downstairs for some reason. I don't know if somebody's here. But um, so I was at the basketball game. It's our last game. If we lose, we're out. And I scored 30 points that game. That was like a historic game for me. And the other team, since it was AAU, the whatever it stand for, Amateur Athletic Union or something like that, um, they said, "Do you wanna join our team? Since your team is out, you're a great player. Do you wanna come join our team?" And I was like, "Ah, I can't go to Charleston, West Virginia every single, like, day. It just wasn't gonna work." But I was very excited, and that's I guess, my story about
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah. So that's
Ah.
I love that story. That's part one. Now, what we'll probably talk about is that I know that you've been working with Disney on the movie.
Yes.
And we talked back in May when I first met you in Louisville in May about a certain, light-skinned African American co-star that is available to be in the movie too. So I'm just getting an
My
update
brother
on
from
that
another
from you.
mother. I love it. Yes, yes, you are on the short list. Don't worry.
Okay. Okay. Um Thank you, Mandy. So, well, you want to start? Maybe start there. Tell us about like the project. We know you're executive producer on it. Maybe explain to us the movie concept, and we can work our way back.
Yeah, so it's kind of in such a slow process because Disney's been making so many changes. So we've had a couple rewrites on the script, and then everything kind of went into a hold process as um a lot of changes, and they're kind of getting the queue lined up of what movies they're making when. So we're finding out the exact timing and the run of everything, but for right now, it's in a good place. I do think there's probably going to be another iteration of the script. I think I thought that this happens kind of overnight. I didn't realize that it takes years to do a movie. Sometimes it depends
Yeah.
on the whole concept, it depends on the people involved. And like if it's a Tom Cruise movie, it's probably made in like 2 years. But it takes, and the reason I say that is because I went to see Mission Impossible last night. So he was in my head. That's
It's
why it
on
just
your
popped into
mind.
my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it takes time. So we're still in the process, and I'm learning about patience in this journey. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. So as soon as we have a better timeline, I can give you more information.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Let's
right.
take it back. Let's go the way back machine though. So everybody's going to ask, why are you Princess Sarah? Then they're
Yes,
probably going to ask, why is Disney making a movie? So
yes.
let's like take it back to your origin story, which is such a beautiful story. And I have some follow-up questions there. If you don't mind, why
Sure.
is your name Princess Sarah?
Yeah. And some people name their children princess. So I'll go places and they'll go, "Oh, that's so cute." And I'm like, it's kind of a responsibility, but that's a whole nother story." Um, but
Oh,
so I'll give
whole
you,
nother
but
story. Yeah.
what I understand that because representation matters, and people aren't used to seeing people that look like me, black and brown people, people of color as royalty. And I think we only think of people in England as royal. However, Meghan Markle has shifted a lot of that conversation, but there are people who are royal in Saudi Arabia, India, all over the world. So, but we don't often know about them. So, I was adopted, just to share my story. I was adopted, grew up in an all white family in Morgantown, West Virginia. And my birth father is from Sierra Leone, West Africa. My birth mother was a white American. They met, they were young, they spent the summer together. My birth father went back to another part of West Virginia to go to school because he came over to go to college and graduate school in the United States to then return and help support the country of Sierra Leone. So I was a surprise. I was like, "Wait, what?" So my birth mother didn't know she was pregnant. My birth father had no idea. He had gone back to school, and she reached out to him and said, "I'm pregnant." And he said, "What should we do?" And she said, "You should stay in school, and I think we should give her." She kept me for 9 months.
Mhm.
And she said to my birth father, Joe, she said, "I think it'd be good to give her to a family who can really give her what she needs." So
Mm.
I was with her for 9 months, then I was in foster care for 3 months, and then I was adopted into this amazing all-white family in Morgantown, West Virginia. Now, my parents who adopted me are from the Midwest. They're from Illinois, and my dad, um, and my mom who adopted me, my dad had moved to West Virginia to be a professor in the medical school at West Virginia University. And they had 2 daughters, Lynn and Laura, blonde hair, green eyes, Lynn, dark hair, big glasses. They were 10 and 11. And unbeknownst to me, I was gonna get this whole new family. Um, and I have to say a very special family at that. I am so close to my family and I love them with all my
Mm.
heart. And I was adopted 3 days after my first birthday by this whole
Mm.
new family, and, grew up in Morgantown, West Virginia with a lot of love and a lot of community. I think sometimes when I say West Virginia, there are all these, like, negative stereotypes. They're like, "West Virginia, oh, no." But it's like, no, actually, it's beautiful, the mountains are magical, the water, the lakes. I mean, it's a special place, and I grew up in a college town where there was a lot of energy and a big university. Um, so it was a really great upbringing, and, I feel like I'm going on and on, but do you want me to keep going, or do you have another
Keep
question?
going.
Okay,
No,
keep
no, I mean, no,
going, 'cause
I'm
I
eating it
can talk,
all up.
y'all.
Yeah, no. I get
Okay.
Also,
Yeah, so
the hat makes the story even better. It's like superpower hat. I love it.
I think it's kind of like a Cowboy Carter, Beyonce
Yes.
vibe I'm
That's
Oh,
right.
feeling.
it's
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
vibes,
We like
good
it. We like
vibes.
it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
She's inspired me with the cowboy hats, but, um, I I went we were at the beginning of the show, we were talking about basketball, and one of the ways I was navigating my life and feeling like I fit in, and I can talk more about that. When you're a brown girl, a black girl in a white world, a predominantly white world in West Virginia, I didn't realize, unbeknownst to me, that I was trying to fit in. And I had a great life. I played varsity basketball, homecoming queen, full scholarship to college. I was kind of one of those overachievers. And I didn't realize till much later I wanted everybody to like me and I didn't want anybody to leave me.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was working on the book that I co-wrote, A Princess Found, when I kind of had that aha moment. But basketball was one of my identity pieces. I loved it. It was how I thrived. I love sports. Sports pretty much came easily to me, except tennis. Not so good at tennis. Not so good at baseball. I think those hand-eye coordination, not so good. But gotta throw that in. But basketball and track were like my heartbeat. They were part of who I am. I was known in my town as an athlete. I had opportunities to be on the front page of the sports section, which was kind of a huge, special moment for me because we had Division 1 college in our town and they usually went on the front page. So when I'd have moments on the front page, it really, really touched my heart. It was a huge thing. And I loved it. I loved playing sports. And my senior year of high school, I tore my ACL and I was out
Oh.
of
Oh,
sports.
no. Ah.
And I had this moment of, okay, now who are you? You're not Sarah the athlete. Like that was the way I identified. That's the way I subconsciously felt safe. And I had to kind of recreate myself and re-understand like I'm not just an athlete, I'm a person living my life and it's okay that you're not playing sports. But it was really rough because I lost like 20 pounds that year. I was having a hard time navigating. I was acting like everything was great, but I was challenged. And then I said, okay, one of the things that you love is acting and TV and film and performance. And I had told myself if I get injured this year, because I had tore my hamstring in the 100-meter dash at the state track meet the year before, I said, if I get injured this
Mm,
year, I'm going to take on my theater. So I auditioned for college and graduate schools and got a full scholarship to go study classical theater. And I was
mm,
really excited about that. And I kind of was just like, okay, this is a new part of myself to step into. Um, and went on to go to college, went on to graduate school, then moved to Los Angeles where I started doing TV and film. If any people have watched the older show from back in the day, it depends on your age, The Secret Life of the American Teenager with Molly Ringwald, who was the mom, and Shea Woodley
mm,
is doing all
Yeah.
kinds of cool stuff. I played the doctor on that show for a little bit of time. But as I was in Los Angeles, I wanted to know I did this amazing class called Landmark Worldwide, and I did this.
mm.
Have you ever heard of it?
I have. I've known some friends that have gone through it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Well,
intense.
it's intense, but I thought, "Oh, I'm gonna go to have a breakthrough in my acting career." And really what
Mm,
was there, it had nothing to do with acting. I realized that I needed to work on the relationship with my birth parents that I had never
mhm.
met.
Yeah.
It uncovered these blind spots that I didn't even know were there. And if I hadn't done this course, I don't know if I would have met my birth family. I don't know if I would have gone to Sierra
Mm,
Leone. Actually, I probably would not have. That's pretty much a yes. I would not have. But this
mm,
course changed the trajectory of my life in such a powerful way. So I was sitting in the course and they said, tell the person sitting next to you where you're holding back in life. And I was sitting next to my friend Art. And I said, Art, I'm terrified to find my birth father. And he said, why? And I guess before I share that, I need to say that I didn't realize until sitting in that course that I was really angry at my birth father. I had made up the
mm,
story like, well, where were you? My birth mother kept me for 9 months and I was in foster care for 3 months. Where were you? Like, didn't you care about me? Didn't you love me? And there was all this anger about feeling unwanted. And
mm,
then as I sat in the course, I mean, it's not very often you get 2.5 days and over a weekend and one evening to kind of think about your life. We don't often take time to do that. It was a privilege. It was a wonderful opportunity. And in that moment, I sat there and I thought, what was it like to be an African man in West Virginia with a white woman
Mm-hmm.
having a child in the
Mm-hmm.
70s and 80s? Maybe
Yes.
I should
yeah.
give this guy a break.
Yeah.
Never occurred to me. I was more very often when we're hurt by somebody, we can't step into their shoes. We're
Mhm.
so like, well, they're this, and it's easier to be angry than to actually deal with our vulnerability. Or I'll speak in the I perspective, my vulnerability, my fear. And once I let go of that anger, I realized what was underneath that was fear. Actually, I would really like to meet you, but what if you don't want to meet me?
Mm,
And the moment I let go of that anger, it's like this whole new world opened up. And I call it the yellow brick road. It was like this Wizard of Oz moment where everything fell into place. And I realized in that moment that it was all always there. I just wasn't open to it. Maybe I wasn't ready for it. But the moment I let go of that anger, the yellow brick road opened and I got to start walking down the road and I started to learn. And I started to learn about my birth father and learn about my birth mother's family. My birth mother unfortunately passed away of cancer when I would have been about 11. So I never got to meet her, but I got to see
mm.
pictures and I got to hear stories and she loved to sing and dance and act just like me. I had gone to
Aw.
theater school. It was like I was hearing about the same person. I was like I was hearing about
Mm,
myself when I
mm,
got to meet some of her family members and hear stories. And it was wonderful. And I also had to realize the courage that it took for her to keep a child for 9 months and realize that you're not well enough to keep her. And one of the things I often don't share in interviews, and I've recently had a breakthrough in this, is she dealt with being bipolar. And I never talk
mm.
about that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to share that. I want everything to just look perfect. It's like, no, actually, that's real.
It's very
And
real.
thank goodness she placed me in adoption because she wasn't well enough to take care of me, number one. Number two, she passed away of cervical cancer when I would have been about 11. So I would have lost my mom. And her mother passed away, my birth mother's mother passed away when she was 4. So her having the courage and the wherewithal to say, let's give her to a family who can give her what she needs. When she said that to my birth father, you should stay in school. Let's give her to a family that gives her what she needs. She actually broke the cycle of losing your mother. And I got to
Mm.
grow up with this incredible mom who raised me, who is still one of my sheroes to today. So sometimes I think as adopted folks, we're like we're angry or we don't know the stories, and very often we're placed in adoption for a reason. Something wasn't working, and sometimes it's so much better. Very often it's so much better for us, and instead of being hurt and angry, it's really powerful to go, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Mm.
Um, and I still love you, and I'm sending you love. Um, but thank you. So yeah. So then I wanted to find my birth father, and I didn't know where to begin. And when I was sitting in this class, the wisdom course, because there's a whole curriculum for living at Landmark Worldwide, and I was not the wisdom course. I love the wisdom course, but I was sitting in self-expression and leadership program. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting in the course. They said, tell the person sitting next to you where you're holding back in life. And I was sitting next to my friend Art. I said, Art, I'm terrified to meet my birth father. I'm really afraid of being rejected. I had already gone through the anger stuff. I had moved past that. Now it was the fear. And he said, listen, I know a private investigator who won't charge you more than $100, and your birth father's going to love you. And I'm like, $100?
Wow.
Private investigators are thousands. Like, how do you know this? He goes, I have an adopted sibling. This gentleman helped her. It's going to be okay. And I said, all right. And like I said, the yellow brick road, once I was available, it was all there. And I called the private investigator, 3 hours, all the information I needed for $25, not even 100. He gave
Wow.
me all the information before I wrote him a check when we used to write checks,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
This was back in 2003. So I wrote, he said to me, the private investigator, he gave me the information. He said, your birth father's living in Maryland. Don't make a phone call, even though you have a phone number, because people often hang up, they get scared, they get overwhelmed. Write a letter and let him sit with it. So this is when before emails and everything, 2003. So I
Mhm.
hand wrote a letter, rewrote the letter, had a friend read it, rewrite it again. And she's like, just be yourself. You don't have to prove anything to him. You don't need to tell him all your accomplishments to be enough. It's like, oh, wow, ouch. Didn't realize I was doing that. Wrote a
Mm.
letter, mailed it off. 4 days later, I get a phone call. And there was a woman on the other line. She said, hello, Sarah. This is Evelyn. How are you? And I thought, no, wait a second. Is this that Jamaican woman I met the other day? Because I couldn't get the dialect. Wasn't expecting to hear from anyone so soon. She said, I'm your auntie. We received your letter. And I started to cry. I
Oh.
said, thank you so much for calling. I didn't know if I would ever hear from you. I didn't know if I would ever see you. She said, Sarah, I was there when you were born. I used to take care of you when your birth mother would go to the grocery store. She said, hold on. Let me get your uncle on the phone. And my uncle gets on the phone. He goes, oh, Sarah. I was like, oh my goodness. He says, we are so happy you've been found. Do you know who you are? And I'm like, I'm Sarah? He says, you are part of a royal family. Your great grandfather was a paramount chief in Sierra Leone. Your grandfather was a paramount chief. Your grandfather was knighted Justice of the Peace by the Queen of England. You can be chief someday. You are a princess in this country. So, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to be perfect? I have to wear a dress all the time. Now I can never say a bad word. Like, what does this mean?
Right. Halt the F bombs, right?
No cursing, Manny. No cursing. Keep going.
No, right? And it was so crazy. And I said, okay. And he said, we're going to contact your birth father in Sierra Leone. He's going to be so happy to meet you. and all the fear comes back up. But I created this possibility of how I wanted to be at Landmark in Landmark Education. I created this possibility of being open, loving, and courageous no matter what. Whether he wanted to meet me, not meet me, I just I said, "This is where I'm gonna stand." And let me tell you what, it was scary, standing in the unknown, not knowing what he would say, would he wanna meet me? I was so afraid. I was so afraid that he might say, this was my dire fear. "I didn't wanna meet you, that's why we placed you in adoption. I didn't want you." Like, there was that all that fear, and that none of that was accurate. It's amazing. I just want people to hear this. It's amazing that we make up these stories to protect ourselves and push other people away, and it's really not the truth. We make it our truth, but it's not. And, when I was sitting so they contacted my birth father. It took him 2 weeks to get a message from village to village to village because
Mm.
this was 1991 to 2002, there was a blood diamond war that happened in Sierra Leone, and this was 2003. So very few people had cell phones, they were running for their lives, it was a very different time. So they had to get a message from village to village, and during those 2 weeks of them getting a message to my birth father to say that I wanted to meet him, I wanted to talk to him, I started getting phone calls from all of these different African family members who live in the United States. "Hello," said I, "I'm your Uncle Ali, your father's favorite uncle." "Hello," said I, "I'm your Auntie Jenny. They used to call your father and me twins when we were little." "Hello," said I, "hello," said I, "hello," said I, "hello," said I. All of these different African family members are calling me, welcoming me into the family. When I had told myself they're not gonna wanna meet me, they're not gonna wanna talk to me, and it was this love, and there was this welcome. And as that excitement of talking to people and the 2 weeks went by, my birth father got the message and I got a phone call. And I'll never forget, I was at my place here in LA. No, actually, I wasn't. I was in Venice, California with a
Mm.
friend of mine. I was in Venice, California, and I walked into this vintage clothing store. I remember because it was really loud out on the street in Venice, and I walked in, I pushed over into, like, these how vintage clothing stores, like, it's, like, musty in there, like,
Yeah, I was
everything's
just
covered
about
with
to say, did you
old.
sneeze a million times
Oh
because of the
my
dust?
gosh,
No,
the
I
cold,
I
the
was
dust,
I
and
was
I'm like
smelling it as you were saying it, yes.
I was like, "Oh my gosh," but I was like, "I gotta take this call," and I
Right,
was like,
yeah. Just
I'm
you're
leaning against
hiding
all
in
the
the bell
clothes.
bottoms. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, "Hello," and my birth father said, "Hi, it's so good to hear your voice." He said, "The
Mm.
first thing I wanna say is please forgive me.
Oh,
I didn't know how to find you after you'd been placed in adoption. Your name had changed, everything had changed." And I said, "I actually need to ask you to please forgive me because
Uh,
I've been making you wrong my entire life just to protect myself, and I'm not gonna do that anymore." And he said, "Okay." And he said, I said, I'm so excited to meet you. I'd love to figure out how to meet you." He told me about his my birth mother, Lillian Pearl Matheny, and they spent the summer together. He told me he didn't know, and he told me the whole story. And I said, "Listen, if there's a day that goes by that you feel guilty, please don't. You gave me one of the best families in the world, and now I'm gonna get to meet you too. So how do we do this?" He said,
mm.
"It's challenging right now for me to get a visa to come to the United States. Could you come here?" I said, "I would love to." So I flew to Maryland to meet all the African family members. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. And we planned a trip for 6 months later to go to Sierra Leone that December, because that was the best time when everyone was available. Get off the airplane, walk down the tarmac, had straightened my hair. Some people will understand that because they said, "You have a sister in Sierra Leone. She's going to want to braid your hair." I said, "I've got all this curly hair. Let me press it out." Little did I know that Sierra Leone's humidity is at a whole nother level. So my
Oh,
hair literally stood
no.
up like
Fuzzy.
its own, had a life of its own. And I just I pulled that sucker back into a ponytail. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna meet my birth father." And when I saw his face, it's as if his eyes were saying, "Please like me, please accept me, please like me." And I walked over to him and I gave him a big hug. And I said, "It's so good to finally meet you." And he said, "It's so good to finally meet you too." And we took a ferry outside, or we walked outside, and my aunt Amy was standing there. She says, "Turn around, girl. Let me look at you. Let me look at you." So I turned around, and she gave me a big hug, and we took a ferry from Lunge to Freetown, which is the capital of Sierra Leone. It's
Mhm.
actually called Freetown because it's where Africans who were taken and enslaved around the world were returned, thus the name
Mm.
Freetown. So I'm in Freetown, and I we stay overnight in a small hotel. The next morning, I would do a knock on the door, which I normally do, but I'm not going to because my puppy Coco will think somebody's at the door and not stop barking. But there was a knock at the door, knock, knock, knock. And I went to the door, and my birth father was standing there, the small hotel in Sierra Leone, and he said, "Sarah, I would love for you to wear this green African dress into our family's village." And he had the same matching green shirt, and I was like, "This
Aw.
is great. We're gonna be twins. Okay."
Yeah, twinsies.
So, we have breakfast that morning after spending the night in the hotel, and then the next day we go on a 6.5 hour ride. It's not so long now that the roads have been fixed, but at that time, because of the war, because of the roads being so bad and the rainy season, there were huge potholes, like the size of small ponds in these big roads. But we went on what I call the Indiana Jones roads to Boompe, the bumpy roads to Boompe, up and down these roads. But imagine there were these beautiful red, mahogany red dirt roads and these big bushy green trees. It was gorgeous. And we're driving from Freetown in this giant SUV all the way to Boompe. And as we arrive, I was falling asleep on my father's shoulder. Then finally, I was like, "Can I just lay my head down in your lap?" Because I was exhausted. 24
Mm.
hours flight to get there, get up the next day, and go on a 6 hour bumpy road ride. And when I arrived in the village, this young boy was wearing all white, and he ran up beside the car, and then he ran up ahead. And all of a sudden, the car was surrounded by 10, 20, 100, hundreds of people surrounded the car. And like choreography, I think this way because of my background in dance. Like choreography, everyone parted, and all the women of the village came forward wearing the same green dress that I had been given that morning,
Wow.
and they were singing. They were singing, "Pada tang tang tang, pada tang tang tang, pada do adu way, Buddha Sarah go to." They're singing in Mende, my family's language. We're preparing for Sarah. I had never met anyone there. I didn't win the basketball game. I wasn't the homecoming queen. I just showed up, and that was enough. Another thing I'm learning on this journey is sometimes just showing up is enough,
Ah, showing
right?
up is everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just taking the journey, stepping into the unknown, allowing yourself to be terrified and seeing how it's gonna go. So, I get to meet my sister Jeneba, my brother Hindobe. They do celebrations up into the night. They bring me into this big round air, like people sitting in the round with bleachers and tables, and all the section chiefs are there. All the section chiefs, there are 10 section chiefs that at that time who report to my uncle, who's the paramount chief. And the paramount chief reports to the president of the country. And so I'm sitting there at the main table with all these different dignitaries, and this young woman walks over. She's beautiful and just has all this confidence as she saunters over to me wearing the green dress. She goes, "Hello, Sarah. I'm your sister, Jeneba. Our brother Hindobe will be here tomorrow," with this air of confidence. And I was like, "Okay, who's this?" "Yes, queen." And so it was really nice to meet her. And my father, Joseph, and I got to meet his wife, Mary. Interesting little biblical thing going on there. Not quite sure about,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but it was
Yeah.
really special. And I celebrations went on for days. It was magical and beautiful and overwhelming. And I also got to see what happened after an 11-year civil war. I saw Bumpe High School that my father ran, and my great-grandfather helped restore back in the day, had been with many other people. He didn't do it by himself, but much of it had been destroyed. Um, People had missing arms, missing legs after this war because of the machetes that were used during the war. And it was just, in my mind, I thought I was coming to meet my birth father to get more clarity and completion for myself in my life. And when I got there, I realized, you know what? This isn't about you at all. This is just like, I'm getting to know who this extended family is, but this is about what are you going to do to help support after this 11-year civil war. You didn't get here for no reason. And it didn't all unfold so easily. I feel like it was definitely meant to be. We were meant to meet. And I said, I've got to do something. At that time, I had my bachelor's and master's in fine arts. What am I know nothing about how to run a nonprofit or do all this business stuff or what do we do? And it just was like one step at a time. And I started talking to people and talking to friends. They were like, let's start a foundation that's actually started. We started in 2004 and got our 501(c)(3) status in 2006. So we've almost been running for like almost 20 years doing this
Mhm.
nonprofit. And we started doing
Awesome.
work in public health, education, technology, female empowerment. And I took at that time in my 20s my two sheroes, my hero and my shero, my mom and dad, to Sierra Leone. And I said, I want to see if we can all meet and work together. And my parents were like, let's go. And we went to Sierra Leone. My mom did she was a teacher and taught kids with learning differences as in the United States, and so she went over there and did programs with the kids, and my dad and my birth father spoke together about Rotary and Rotary International, another incredible philanthropic organization that's almost eradicated polio in the world.
Mm.
Um, and they said, "Well, Jim," that's my dad who raised me. "Well, Joe," my birth father, "where do you think we should get clean water wells? Let's start digging wells," because people didn't have access to clean water. So my birth father and my dad started working together. That makes me really emotional,
Oh,
especially
it's
after just having
beautiful.
Father's Day. I don't know when this
Oh,
is gonna air, but,
it's
um,
beautiful.
and and life kinda took off, and things that mattered didn't matter anymore, and things that were important for me became about family and community, and what I learned about being a princess is responsibility. It's a responsibility, it's a title that's been given through work of generations from your family, and very often, um, the families around the world were the warriors back in the day, the ones who would protect the people. And my family, Pessoa, means to trap. They were great warriors. And so my family is a family that is about making a difference. It's about making sure people have what they need in the country. And it's an honor and it's a responsibility and it's not an easy job. And even for people in really like over the top wealthy countries, they are constantly working on things and making sure that their country's better. So I never used to claim the title princess because I thought, oh, people will think I think I'm better than everyone or blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't until a good friend of mine, when we were doing a fundraiser for our nonprofit, Sierra Leone Rising, and she wrote, Princess Sarah would like to invite you too. And I panicked. I was like, you can't put princess on there. You got to take that off. That's too pretentious, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, Sarah, you are. That's part of your lineage. That's part of your heritage. She said, little girls of all backgrounds, especially black and brown girls, need to know that this is possible, that we are descendants from royalty. And I just had this moment of when I was of remembering working on the book with my writing partner, Tracy Trivis, when I was writing a memoir. And we did a lot of research for the book. Um, and one of the professors at a university said, you know, a lot of the British wanted to get rid of all
Mhm.
of the royalty in every place that they were colonizing. They only wanted to have one Queen of England. So you really embracing the title brings back ownership to who your family is, and it also lets people know that this is part of our culture. And I went, "Okay, if it's not about me, I can do that." So
No, it honors that rich history. It honors it and educates, which is really important. I think
yeah,
this
yeah,
work you're
thank you.
doing. I have a question because my family's Croatian. And my aunt and I went to Croatia years ago, and I something happened to me while I was there, and I'm curious if this happened to you on your first visit to Sierra Leone. We weren't raised at all with any Croatian traditions or anything. We just knew, my married name's Graziano, but my maiden name is Kobasic. And so, but we weren't raised with any traditions. But when my aunt and I stepped foot into Croatia, I was struck by the quirkiness of all the women and like the stoic men. Like it felt like I was at a family function. And so it felt so oddly familiar, even though like we didn't practice any of these cultures or rituals or anything growing up. But like as soon as I got there, I felt home. Like
It was
I
you.
felt like I
It was
belonged. Yeah. Did you get any of that? Like when you got to Sierra Leone, were there any like mannerisms? Was there any? Were you like instantly like, I don't know why, but I feel home? Was there any of that for you besides your mom obviously being an actor? Your mom singing and dancing, just like you. Was there anything else like that? Just physically being there?
you know what's interesting? One of the things that happened is one of the moments that brought this beautiful connection for me because honestly, when I first got there, I was kind of overwhelmed and in shock. Like I couldn't believe that I was there. I couldn't all this love and attention. I didn't know how to be with all of it.
Yeah.
Um and also my family lives out of the regular city, so more in the rural area. So they asked me what I like to eat and I said, "Oh, I love chicken and I love rice." And people literally in the rural parts of Sierra Leone, people in a lot of countries, people we don't just go to our grocery store. You chop the chicken's head off and you make the chicken.
There's
So
some chicken,
all of
yeah,
these
grilled
people
chicken.
were lined up to bring me live chickens.
Oh my gosh.
Um, because I said I like chicken and I'm getting emotional because I'm like, they need these for their family. It's not like they're pumped full of hormones and we're getting all these chickens like a chicken factory. It's like they raise them till they're big enough. When they're big enough, after so many months or a year, then you eat them. And they're bringing chicken to me. I didn't I didn't know how to be with all of this. There was such respect and such love and I get that I'm sharing about being a princess, but this is also like the African culture. I just want to say it's not just because I'm family. And honestly, if I took the two of you with me to Sierra Leone, they'd welcome you the same way.
Mhm.
I mean, it really is the culture is to love and welcome people. It's such a beautiful. I mean, every the continent of Africa is every country is so vastly different. And I haven't been in all the places, but I do have to say Sierra Leone and even when I was in Kenya, the places I have visited on the continent, the love and community is just incredible.
Mm.
Um, but when I got there, my father's wife, Mary, looked at me and she said, "You have your father's eyes."
Mm.
And it was this moment of connection, of never looking like anyone my entire life, always
Yeah.
wondering who I look like, and then seeing this man who's older and so on, but when I saw pictures of him when he was in his 20s, it was like we look like the same person from, like, here up, it was
Wow.
like, "Oh,
Wow.
that's me." I look more like him than his children that are full African. They look more like their mother, and I look like him, which is kinda cool.
Mm.
So that was a beautiful connection and connecting through the eyes with him. But I have to be really honest, it took me a second to connect because I think I was so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But I do have to say something really interesting. I grew up going to church with my parents, and I sang in the choir. And one of the things that was really interesting is I was driving in the car. This was a moment of connection, which was so beautiful. We were driving in the car with it was my father, my sister, and I, Geneba, and we were driving through from Boompay to Bo. And my father just started singing a hymn that they sang
Mm.
in church in Sierra Leone. And my sister chimed in and she started singing. And I knew the same hymn because I sang that same hymn in West
Mm,
Virginia.
Oh,
So
yeah.
wow.
that was an amazing moment of just having a song to connect. I think my music and dance are huge connectors for me. And when I got out of that big SUV and saw the crowd of people and all the women dancing and singing. I wish I had a camera in the front of my face because the camera was behind me. My friend came to film this, and I literally am still. And I know what was going on in my head, but you can't tell from the back of my head, but I was in shock. But the moment I heard the music, my head just started swaying, and then I came to. Like, I checked out, and then I came to,
Wow.
and I was embraced. They all started hugging
Mm,
me. It was so special.
Hmm.
powerful stuff.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really amazing. It was a really
I'm
awesome
trying to
experience.
figure out where we go from here
I
because
know,
there's so
I'm
many ways
sorry.
we can go. It's okay. Don't
No, it's
apologize.
just I could sit here all day and listen to
Yes,
all these
yes. It's like
tales. It's
it's
so
like
good.
maybe let's do this. So you've told we usually let our guests ask us a question. So why don't
Okay.
maybe we do that? So we'll flip the script. You can ask us any question you want because I'm curious to know what you would ask Mandy, what you would ask myself based on how much we know about each other. Let's go with that now, and then let's see where that takes us. And we have about a good 15 minutes left, so we got some time.
Okay. So, well, what I don't know, Amani, is about your background. I'd like to know a little bit about you, your background, and how you even got into the podcast world, and where did you grow up?
Okay.
And I should have done
So
more research, but
it's
here we
okay.
go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I actually
We're
grew
getting
up.
to know each other now. This is
Yes,
all
we
a
are.
part of it. New
Yes, we are.
friends.
I grew up in a city or state, excuse me, that's connected to West Virginia. I grew up in Maryland, Silver Spring,
Oh,
Maryland.
yeah.
Yes, I went to Howard University there. Worked for Marriott for a long time, and then kind of retired to become a full-time DJ. Along the way, became a professor, college of like music business professor, and an author.
Ooh.
And so that's kind of what I've done.
Tremendous.
And that's a really quick synopsis. I've done a lot, but that's a quick synopsis of kind of my journey. I've lived in like DC, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, Miami, LA, Vegas, all those places in the country. And that kind of takes you to where I am now really quickly.
And where are you now physically?
Las Vegas.
Okay, you're in Vegas. And you are a professor of music.
Yes, music
Music.
business. Yes.
That's
hmm
so
I
Okay,
help, I help.
he's being very humble. He
I
created
know so
the
much
whole
that I got to work
program.
on this. Yes.
He
You created
created the
what?
music entertain. He created the the business of entertainment program at the university. Like,
Yeah,
did I say that right, Amani?
I
He's
Wow.
being
created the
very
music
humble.
business course. Now we have a music business minor. I coach people in the music business about how to make more money. I wrote a book that came out in February that made the
I'm so
USA
sorry.
Today's bestseller list. That was on the history of R&B groups. And
It's so
so
good.
those are some of my more recent accomplishments. Yes.
That's very
And I
impressive
like
and
yes, I
very
like long walks.
inspiring.
I like long walks on the beach and pancakes too.
That's it. No, but so many people are looking for, like, how do I make it in the music industry? And I don't, and people might not know. What's the name of the university or
Cal
college?
State University Fullerton. But for Cal, that's the university. But for people that are kind of already working or whatever, you can just connect them to me. Like that's a great referral. Those are the people that I
Okay.
really work with. Yeah.
I will do that.
Yeah. So that's me. Any follow-ups before we go to Mandy? Your question for Mandy?
Andy, I want to know, usually I just want to share. I'm really big on research, and I realized when I had this on my calendar, I'm like, wait, what? Wait, oh my gosh. And I had all these
Who the
meetings.
heck are these people? Yeah.
So I like to come in prepared. So I apologize, but I want to know about you and where you're from and how you got into this, because you guys are great duo, and how you two met too.
Yeah.
Aw, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I live in San Diego. I've been in San Diego 25 years, but I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. A hopeless Cleveland Browns fan. Will never win, but I will always cheer.
That's right.
Um, I Amani and so I also wrote a book. I wrote a best-selling book of sales. So I come from the sales side. I'm a lifelong sales and marketing executive, mostly the hospitality industry. But over the last 16, 17 years, I run a sales training, sales coaching business for all industries, for entrepreneurs or for large corporations that want to level up their sales. And with that, you write a book. So I wrote a book called Sales Tales. Very funny. It's a funny business book. And in the process of that, I had wanted to do a podcast at some point, but it was just sort of in like the back of my head. Then fast forward a couple months, Amani and I served on a committee together for an organization that we volunteer for. and they were trying to get people to come to their conference. And I raised my hand. I'm like, why don't you guys just do a LinkedIn Live? I was just interviewed on one last week. It was really fun. It was really easy. They said, great idea, Mandi. Go for it, right? That's how things always work. You bring the idea, and then all of a sudden you've given yourself homework assignments. So Amani's like, I'll do it because this is his world, right? Live streaming and all this other stuff is his world. I had never done anything like that before, but I like to ask questions. I like interviewing people. So we started interviewing people for the conference. So it was like once a week for 10 minutes to boost attendance. We would one week release the sponsors, another week release the speakers, another week release the charity, and it boosted registration. And that went on 6 weeks. And we had a natural thing. Like I swear, and Amani tells me no cuss words, and I'm kind of off the cuff, and Amani's really like calm. It's like a good pairing. We had fun. Like my cheeks always ached, right? So after that, I was like, how do we keep this going? Do you want to start a podcast? He's like, yeah, sure. So, between our combined conversations with each other, we decided to start a podcast about adventures in business. In between there somewhere, I can't remember, at some point, I had gone on a book tour, and people would come up to me and tell me these grueling business stories or these inspirational business stories. And I felt like I was just being selfish, just keeping these to myself. I felt like I got to blog about these people. I want to talk about these people. Like there's so many lessons in that. Like your whole story, I literally wrote probably 17 questions as you're talking. Like there's so, there's so much value in our stories that I just felt like, why aren't I telling these stories of these people across the country telling me they're like, I spent my last $11 to participate in a trade show, and now I've got this successful business. Like all these different people are telling me these stories. So I asked Amani, like, can we make it about business? Can it be adventures in business? Can we interview like thought leaders and founders and CEOs about their Trumps, like all not their Trumps, about their trips and stumbles and all
Or the
this other
head.
stuff? Yeah, it's on the mind.
Keep
On the
going,
mind,
keep
I
going,
get it.
Andy.
Like, can we interview them? Like, I want to hear the bad stuff and the good stuff or whatever. And we want to make it real. So that's how the podcast was born. And we honestly, we're going on 3 years. July's our
Yeah.
3-year anniversary. We had no idea what we were doing. And it's been
Congratulations.
fun. Yeah, we've been learning, and we've got a really loyal audience. We've got like really interested. We've been so lucky. Like we've never had a hard time getting a guest. We've had really loyal audiences and really compelling, interesting guests. And it's my favorite part of the whole week. It's like a masterclass in business, just learning
Yeah.
people's life stories, and then being able to share it is just even better. Just sharing it with our community has been just even better.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I'm so glad you 2 met and decided to create this because it's so special. I love hearing people's stories and letting them share their story. And I have a podcast called Modern Royalty Podcast, interviewing royalty from around the world to learn about their history and their lives. And no matter who you're interviewing, I think it's so interesting to learn about people's journeys. And there's so many lessons because they have these aha moments. And then I feel like they gift them to all of us when they share. So that's
totally.
so
And
cool.
it's so intimate. Like, don't you feel with your podcast, like it's so intimate. Like you are with people when they're walking a dog. You're with people in the line when they're dropping off their kid. You're with them on a road trip. You're with them driving somewhere they don't want to go. And like you're the only thing helping them through. Like I just feel so blessed to be a part of this. I don't know. How do you feel about podcasting? How do you feel about your connection to your audience?
I love it. I took a pause for a little bit and we're actually starting back up again. But I love it. I love to hear the feedback. I love to hear the questions. And the royalty that I'm interviewing are not just I've interviewed actual royalty like Princess Martha Louise of Norway, Dame Tessie of Luxembourg, Princess Jahara of Saudi Arabia. And I've interviewed people who are royalty in their own field, such as
Mm.
Mm.
Silverman, who did the whole Harry Potter series and what's the Hangover and Benjamin Button and Crazy Rich Asians, and then Stephanie Elaine, who did Dear White People, Hustle and Flow, Boys in the Hood. So I've gotten to interview some really incredible, incredible human beings. And they all have their stories. They've all had their struggles. And I think sometimes we think people just get to where they are
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
all admiring them. And they're like, no, I didn't know how I was going to make ends meet, or I didn't know this or that, or I'm still figuring it out, right? Like it's
Right.
so nice to feel like you're not alone. Um, which I think is
Yeah.
so important. And for the royalty for that matter, I think what's so interesting is we're learning about I'm an anthropologist at heart, and I love learning about cultures and people and similarities and differences. And I thought, we don't know about royalty around the world. Let's learn about each other. Royalty is a part of it, but what we're really learning is about culture and history and traditions and food and why celebrations happen and what this means and that religion that's specific to that country or that tribe. And another thing I want to say, which is so cool, is that when talking to people, specifically when I spoke to Princess Johara in Saudi Arabia, she talked about the tribe, like the tribe from generations of people from Saudi Arabia. When I spoke to Princess Akshita of India, she spoke about the generations of tribes. And in Sierra Leone, we talk about tribes. So I was like, you guys all use the word tribe? Like, oh, this is
Mm.
cool. So it's so interesting to learn about each other and see our similarities and differences so we can have more connections as a globe, because I think
Yeah.
that's what I'm so committed to in this lifetime, is that we connect more, that we get to know each other more rather than like I did make assumptions about each other like I did with my birth father, like killing him off because I decided, "Oh, he's like this." But really, he's an amazing human and I needed to give him a chance. And that's what I hope for with podcasts, that we can all get to know each other better and connect.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
yeah, that long form is so
Mhm.
powerful.
Really
Maybe
powerful.
for like our last 5 minutes, because we want to give, we don't want to take, we could talk here all day, first of all. So first
I
of
know, and I
all,
forgot to put the podcast, Modern Royalty Podcast, in the things that could
okay.
scroll along at the bottom. My
Oh,
Yeah,
bad.
yeah.
we'll add it to the show
The
notes.
show
We'll
notes.
add
Yeah,
it
you
to the
want
show
that to the
notes. We're
show notes.
good.
But
Perfect.
Yeah.
maybe the last kind of 5 minutes, you can share. I'll ask my favorite question in two ways. Just advice that you would give the younger Princess Sarah as she's just leaving West Virginia. So you're just leaving Morgantown. And then we didn't talk about this time, but we'll talk about next time. I'm curious because you have grown a very thriving speaking business.
Mm.
So what like advice would you give younger Sarah leaving college and then right when you were starting like your speaking business too? Well, those are two separate questions about those two topics.
One of the things I would share with myself is you can set up a whole plan of how you think your life's gonna go, and God laughs. I
That's a
literally
good quote.
my plan was like, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna go to graduate school, then I'm gonna start doing TV and film in Los Angeles, and then I'm gonna walk the red carpet, and that's my life. And I'm gonna marry Steve Berger, who was the captain of the Mountaineer basketball team when I was in middle school. So I said that's like I had this whole thing planned out. It was hilarious. And I wrote this in ninth grade, right? It was the English teacher's assignment. And I had a whole plan. I didn't have a plan to go to Sierra Leone. I didn't even know I wanted to meet my birth father. I had no idea that this whole other journey would be part of my existence. I had no idea. And what I would yeah, if what I would say is that you can make all the plans you want and do it. Like nothing wrong with plans, but be open to going off course. Be open to things changing. And maybe you think, oh my gosh, I was speaking to a dear friend of mine, Galit, the other day, and she said, what I've learned and how I look at things is when things don't work out, it wasn't aligned for me. It
Mm,
wasn't the time. And I think sometimes we think, oh my gosh, this has changed, or I didn't get that job. And we make it mean stuff about us. I'm not this, I'm not that. We can keep working on ourselves, right? But it wasn't necessarily the job for us or the perfect avenue. What happened was I wanted to find my birth father, and it was time, and it was like everything was it was waiting for me to show up. And that alignment just brought all the stuff. And it's been a roller coaster ride. It hasn't all been perfect. It's been challenging to have a family in a developing country that went through an 11-year civil war, that went through Ebola, that went through COVID, and you're wanting to make sure people are staying alive and have clean drinking water. It's it's not like it's my job, but it's my family. It's my responsibility. It's something that I want to do. However, enjoy the journey and be open to going off track. And even if people think, "Oh, what is she doing? Or what's he doing? Or what are they doing? What are they thinking?" Like, it's your journey, and you're the
Mm.
only one who really knows what's next. And other people can say whatever they can say, but it's not their journey. And we all have our own paths. You might go, "Oh, well, Susie, she's doing great. She's got her own show and she's a correspondent on CNN." Well, that's Susie's path. That doesn't mean your path isn't just as important. Um, like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great answer. Man, do you want to take us home?
I do. I love this idea of being open to going off path, being open to going off track. The plan is there is no plan. These are going to be good show notes for later.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've spent so much time with us. You've given back so much to your own community. How can we lift you up? How can we support you? What can what can we do to help support the Sierra Leone organization? Like what can we do to
Yeah.
support and lift you up?
I first of all, thank you so much for asking. I love that. I'm giving you love back. Thank you. Thank you.
I feel
Um,
it. I feel it. I feel
yeah, yeah.
it.
Um, SierraLeoneRising.org, our nonprofit, people could go on and see and tell people about it. Like, that's one thing we don't realize. Some people might go, "Oh, I have to give money." If you give money, yes, please. You can give to a pad program, a sanitary pad program, so girls can stay in school during their menstrual cycle. They make washable, reusable sanitary pads, and this helps with supplies. And it's helped create a microeconomy for the women. And that could be like $40. You can help with a solar lantern, which is $10. Or if you want to help with clean drinking water, so women aren't walking miles a day, so that women can have children in their own towns without traveling far because they don't have clean water. So children stop getting waterborne diseases. You could donate toward a well. Those are about $11,000. But whatever, maybe you want to give 10, maybe you want to give 1,000, maybe you want to give 10,000, whatever, that makes a difference. And maybe you're like, "I don't have any money to give." Share this with somebody. Share Sierra Leone Rising, share this story. Um, and if this isn't your thing, get involved in something that you are inspired by. Like, we're all here for a certain amount of time. What difference are you going to make in the amount of time that you're here? And it could be with a neighbor down the street. It doesn't have to be in West Africa. I would love it to be. So we'd love that, but whatever works for you. And also, if you're listening in and you're part of a company or a university or anyone who likes to have speakers, I would love to come to your school or corporation. I've had an awesome opportunity to speak at NASA, Princeton Plasma Physics Lab, MPI, which is where I met Amani. I'm so grateful for that, and many
Aw,
other organizations. So if you want a speaker to be uplifting, to help support on your journey, whether it's in sales, whether it's in whatever it is, I would love to be a part of your community and support you in whatever you're working on.
All
beautiful.
right.
If the
Beautiful.
last hour is any indication of
Mhm.
the sparkle and shine on stage, people would be silly to not book you as a keynote speaker because you are
Yes.
so engaging and fun. It's
Thank you.
really good stuff. Yeah, thank
Thank
So
you.
with that, we're gonna put you in agreement really quickly, but before that, we'll give you a round of applause right there. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Adventures in Business. Don't forget to rate and review our podcast on the platform that you're currently listening it on. And don't forget to share it with your friends and anybody that might be as much of the business nerds as Amani and I are. See you next time for another captivating interview.